Hey everyone, Iron Monk here, and today I'm going to talk about the Brewmaster Monk in Shadowlands Prepatch. So the Brewmaster Monk got a pretty big rework in Shadowlands Prepatch, but it plays quite a bit differently, but also kind of the same as it did in BFA and Legion, and I'll try to explain that. I just want to say the Brewmaster Monk right now is extremely strong tank. It's extremely sturdy. Um, I'm actually a big fan of the changes that they made. So let's get into it and let's talk about a little bit about the Brewmaster Monk currently. First, let's talk about mitigation. So mitigation has changed a bit. We still have stagger. So basically, what stagger is, it's you take let's say if you take a 10k hit, you take a portion of that damage up front, and the rest of that damage then is damage over time. Either 13 or 10 seconds depending on what talent you take, and we'll talk about the talents later on. So basically you take a certain portion of damage up front and the rest of it is a dot over time. So you could buff stagger by shuffle. So no longer do we have Iron Skin Brew. Before you would drink your Iron Skin Brew and you would stagger more damage, so you would take less damage up front. Now we have shuffle. So shuffle is a buff that you can get, which buffs your stagger by 100%. And the way you gain shuffle is you either keg smash, blackout kick, or spinning crane kick, and you're able to keep up shuffle 100% of the time pretty easily, just by doing your normal rotation. And we'll talk about that a little later. The other way that you mitigate damage is dodging. So Brewmasters either stagger damage or they dodge damage. So basically, every time that you blackout kick, you gain a stacking buff of Elusive Brawler, and how much that dodge chance that you gain is based on the amount of mastery you have. So right now, if I blackout kick, I gain a stacking 25.6% chance to dodge until I'm hit again, and then that would reset. You also gain stacks of Elusive Brawler if you're hit. So if I was hit twice, I gain 2 stacks of Elusive Brawler, and then if I still haven't dodged, then I blackout kick, I'll have 3 stacks of Elusive Brawler, which will be roughly about a 75% dodge. And you can see, based on my stats here, I have 26% mastery, which correlates to how much dodge chance I get per Elusive Brawler stack. So that's basically the Brewmaster mitigation. So right now I'm just going to go over the changes that Brewmaster Monk has gained, some of the abilities that we've gained. So we've gained Invoke Nizao the Black Ox, which was previously a talent. So you summon an effigy of Nizao the Black Ox for 25 seconds. Nizao attacks your primary target and frequently stomps, damaging all nearby enemies. So, while active, 25% of the damage delayed by stagger is instead staggered by Nizao. So basically, this is an offensive and defensive cooldown. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage. It's probably better used in AoE, but I've also used it on single target boss fights and dungeons. If I just have it up, I'll just use it. And basically, it'll take some of that stagger damage, that damage over time effect that you get from stagger, and put that into Nizao. So basically, it reduces that damage over time effect as well. So it's a pretty decent defensive and offensive cooldown. That's not huge. So as I said before, we no longer have Iron Skin Brew. Instead, we have the only 2 brews we have is Purifying Brew and Celestial Brew. So Purifying Brew, basically that the damage that you've staggered. The way that you get rid of that damage is Purifying Brew. Purifying Brew now you have a maximum of 2 charges, and each time that you drink a brew, or drink a Purifying Brew, you get rid of 50% of that damage. So if you're at really high stagger and that dot is ticking really hard, you could drink a Purifying Brew and you get rid of that half of that damage that you're staggering. Also, I guess we'll talk about Celestial Brew. So Celestial Brew basically is a shield that you could use. You get 1 charge of it. Mine's on a 48-second cooldown currently. You get 1 charge of it, and basically based on the amount that you've purified, you could buff up the Celestial Brew shield. So Purifying Stagger damage increases absorption by 200%. So it has some sort of baseline absorption, and then you could buff that up to 200% by the amount you're purified. I can't demonstrate it here because there's nothing to actually hit me, but we'll talk about it during the gameplay footage. If you purify during green stagger or light stagger, you're going to gain 1 stack of this buff called Purified Chi. And if you purify during medium stagger or yellow stagger, you gain 2 stacks. And if you purify during heavy stagger, you gain 3 stacks. Each stack buffs your Celestial Brew by 20%. So you can have a maximum of 10 stacks. So if you purified during red stagger twice, let's say if you're fighting a really heavy pack in a dungeon and it's slapping me, I have red stagger, I purify, I have 3 stacks. It buffs my Celestial Brew by 60%, and then I get red stagger again, and I haven't pressed Celestial Brew, and I purify again at heavy stagger. I'll have 3 more stacks, which will then give me a total of 120% into the Celestial Brew here, the shield. The other new ability that we've gotten in pre-patch is Spinning Crane Kick. Spinning Crane Kick, I believe it's capped at 6 targets. You basically can just spin around. It looks pretty cool, damaging some enemies. This is not, I wouldn't use this in single target, but in AoE it's pretty good. It's not something that you spam because it costs energy, and you want your energy to keg smash. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it's a good filler ability. Instead of using Tiger Palm in AoE, you could use Spinning Crane Kick. Okay, let's go over Azerite and Essences real quick. Actually, let's go over talents. So talents here, I use Eye of the Tiger for a little bit more single target damage, but Chi Burst is also good in AoE. Row 25, I use Tiger's Lust, but I see a lot of people using Chi Torpedo. I got in the habit of using Tiger's Lust because you can cast it on other people. And with Corruption Slow in BFA, Tiger's Lust was always a good way to get a Corruption Slow. Row 30, I just use Light Brewing. Black Ox Brew is viable as well. You could chug some Black Ox Brew, which instantly refills your energy and Purifying Brew charges. Also resets the cooldown of Celestial Brew. Being that Celestial Brew is very strong, I could see some use for Black Ox Brew. I just haven't done a lot of testing on it yet. Row 35, Ring of Peace. It's just too good. I just use this in all scenarios. I do use Black Ox statue on skittish weeks because you're able to taunt. You're able to put down this Black Ox statue and taunt it, and it's basically an AoE taunt. So I use this sometimes if threats are a really big issue. Row 40, you can use Dampen Harm. Dampen Harm reduces all damage you take by 20% to 50% for 10 seconds. So basically, if you get hit with a large hit, you're reducing that damage by 50%. But if you're getting hit by smaller hits, that's going to be less mitigation at 20. If you get hit with a large hit, you could reduce that by 50%, and smaller hits like normal melees from mobs, that's going to be reduced by only like 20%. Bob and Weave increases duration of stagger by 3 seconds. So basically, when you stagger damage, it's that damage over time is normally on a 10-second window. So you're ticking down, a certain amount every second for 10 seconds. But if you take that damage and then take Bob and Weave, it extends it by 3 seconds. So each tick that you take of stagger is lessened. So I normally go Bob and Weave because it gives me more chance to purify, and that damage over time effect from stagger is lessened by a noticeable amount. Row 45, Rushing Jadewind's the default. Exploding Keg, this is a new ability here. It basically hurls a flaming keg at the target location, causing them to miss their melee attacks for the next 3 seconds. This is pretty underwhelming. I could see Brewmasters being able to cheese some sort of mechanics if they're able to guarantee a dodge on a certain ability by using Exploding Keg. I haven't found that niche yet. Special Delivery. I've used this in dungeons like Freehold or the first pool in Toldagar, because basically every time you drink a brew, you throw a keg up in the air, and it reduces the movement speed by all enemies by 50% for 15 seconds. So if you need a constant slow, and you need a kite, special delivery is probably what you want to use. This 50 row, I default as high tolerance. Celestial Flames is a new ability that we got. So drinking from brews has a 30% chance to coat the monk with Celestial Flames for 6 seconds. While Celestial Flames is active, Spinning Crane Kick applies Breath of Fire and fire. Sorry. Spinning Crane Kick applies Breath of Fire, and Breath of Fire reduces the damage affected enemies to deal to you by an additional 5%. So basically, that your normal Breath of Fire dot that you put on enemies after you keg smash, it reduces damage you take by 5%. Celestial Frames will do an additional 5%, but from my testing and the amount this procs, it's pretty low. So I would say you would never take this talent in its current iteration. Blackout combo. Now this is viable. I've used this a bit. High tolerance is just more brain dead to play, so I kind of use that. But blackout combo, basically, when you blackout kick, it'll empower your next ability. So if you blackout kick, then Tiger Palm's damage is increased by 100%. If you blackout kick, then Breath of Fire, its cooldown's reduced by 3 seconds. If you blackout kick, then Keg Smash, reduces the remaining cooldown in your brews by 2 additional seconds. And then if you blackout kick and Celestial Brew, pauses stagger damage by 3 seconds. So the only way I would see this being really useful in the way that I would use it, I would blackout kick, then Keg Smash to reduce the cooldown of my brews by 2 seconds. That means I get Celestial Brew up really fast and my Purifying Brews up really fast. High tolerance, it just makes stagger 5% more effective, and you gain haste based on your current level of stagger. So I do see, if played 100% correctly, this could be actually a little bit better than high tolerance, but it would require me to do some more testing and trying to get good at it. Okay, let's go over Azerite. So Azerite hasn't really changed from what you would run in BFA, but we'll go over what Azerite I'm currently running. Currently I'm running 3 Training of Nizao traits. So Training of Nizao, basically you get 81 mastery based on your current stagger level. So you want to maintain kind of a high stagger level, and you gain that full mastery amount, and you're able to basically mastery buffs your attack power, so you're able to hit harder, and it buffs your dodge, so your dodging mobility. So it's really good defensively, and it's pretty good offensively. So Training of Nizao is definitely the Brewmaster Monk's best trait. Heart of Darkness increases all secondary stats, which is really, really valuable. So all secondary stats by 14 on this piece of Azerite. It's pretty good. And then I'm not really going to go over the inner rows. Basically, what I go for is anything that procs versatility. So I have On My Way, which increases my versatility and speed. And on my shoulders, I'm using Elemental Whirl, which has a chance to increase my crit, haste, mastery, or verse. And then on my helm, I'm running Life Speed, which is just another stat thing, increasing my haste by 17 and my avoidance by 8. And then on the inner rows, just to make sure, whatever you can get between like Resounding Protection, Gem Hide, or Impassive Visage. The only, and then I guess, so Training Nizao, Heart of Darkness. The other trait I would say was a must-have is Boiling Brew. So basically what Boiling Brew does is it gives you a chance, every time your Breath of Fire deals damage, it has a chance to summon a Healing Sphere. The more Healing Spheres you have, the more healing you do, which is always good. So this is a good trait to have. And it's a noticeable difference, too, between having a Boiling Brew and not having a Boiling Brew. The other traits I would consider as Brewmaster over Heart of Darkness, because I definitely want 3 Training Nizaos, would be Elusive Footwork. So Blackout Strike deals an additional deals additional damage, and Blackout Strike critical hits grant one additional stack of Elusive Brawler. So this is pretty good. It has an offensive and defensive component, so I could see this being one of the traits I would take. I would probably drop a Heart of Darkness for this if I was going to switch off. Okay, so I went over Azerite. Let's go over essences. So here's my default build for Mythic Plus. I run Crucible Flames Major. It just does a good amount of damage, so it's kind of the default pick right now for a Major. My Miners, Aegis of the Deep, you gain versatility based on the amount of mobs that you have around you, so that's really good. Conflict and Strife, basically you can get this stacking buff, which gives you a stacking buff of versatility. So versatility is always good to have as a tank. And then Nullification Dynamo for the magic barrier, and also does pretty good damage. For heavy physical damage dungeons like Freehold, I might swap out Nullification Dynamo for either Seer Suppression, which gives you a considerable amount of haste and slows enemies, or I would swap it out for Vision of Perfection, which reduces my Fortifying Brew cooldown and also gives me versatility. So this would be the other one I would use. So maybe Seer Suppression or Vision of Perfection if I was running in like Freehold. Another change for Monk is now we could now use one-handed weapons like fist weapons, swords, maces, axes. Currently, I am running two fist weapons. I'm using the Urchins, which previously had a slap proc on it, but no more. I'm using these two weapons here, and the benefit of using two one-handed weapons currently over one two-handed weapon is that you're able to get a independent or an additional weapon enchant, which procs more stats, which is always a good thing. So I'm using two fist weapons with versatile navigation and deadly navigation. The only thing I would probably switch out here, which I haven't done yet, is switch out one of these enchants for Force Multiplier, which gives you main stat. Because agility is by far the best stat you can get currently due to the stat and level squish that we have going on. Going on stats here, I'm running 118 agility gem to buff my agility, and then I'm also running 112 agility gem to buff to get a little bit more agility. So you can only wear one of each of these agility gems, and the rest of my gems are just versatility. So basically what you want to go for in terms of just gearing would be eye level over everything else, because eye level would give you the most main stat, versatility. And then I would go verse, crit, mastery, and haste. So there's no bad stat to really have. I just value verse because it provides me with additional damage mitigation as well as additional healing and then also additional damage. But all the other stats are pretty good too. So we just want as much stats as possible. Let's go over a little bit of the rotation here. Single target here. What you don't want to do is just run up to this mob and start hitting it. That's not what you want to do. Because I just ran up to this mob here with no shuffle, so my stagger wasn't buffed, and he just probably slapped me down. What you want to do, basically, as you're running up to a mob, you want to pre-rushing Jade Wind to start that up. And you want keg smash before you get to the mob. So you start getting shuffle. And then you want to basically blackout kick on cooldown, keg smash, keep rushing Jade Wind up. You want to keg smash and then breath of fire, and then basically fill her in tiger palms when you can. You don't want to spam tiger palm, but you want to fill it in. Basically, so keep rushing Jade Wind up, blackout kick, keg smash on cooldown, breath of fire after you've keg smashed, and then just fill her in with tiger palms. And then you can also just pop Nizao when you want. If you want to bring out our little friend here. So that's basically, the rotation's super simple, and just by doing this rotation alone, you can see that I'm keeping up shuffle 100% of the time. You just don't want to run into a mob without with no shuffle up, because you're gonna get hit significantly harder. That same goes with AoE. The only difference with AoE is that you want to keg smash, keep rushing Jade went up, breath of fire to get the debuff on them, blackout kick. Instead of tiger palming here, you could basically throw in some spinning crane kicks to get a little bit more AoE damage out. Blackout kick, keg smash, keep rushing Jade went up, breath of fire, blackout kick, throw in a couple, throw in a spinning crane kick every now and then. That's basically all you do there. Let's take a look at some gameplay footage, and then we could talk. We could try to tie all this together here. And so let's go take a look at this freehold that I did. So let's take a look at some gameplay footage from the 27 freehold I did a few days ago. So here's the first pull in freehold. It's I believe it's 9 mobs. And we'll talk about what I did right and what I did wrong here. So basically, a keg smash before I reach the pack. That grants me some shuffle. Try to get some breath of fire out. Important thing to note here is that I make sure that I try to keep all the mobs in front of me. So one of Brewmaster's greatest strengths and one of our damaging mitigating techniques is dodging. You can't dodge if the mobs are hitting you in the back. So you always want to try to keep all the mobs here in front of you. So we lusted. I got thrown. I run back in to try to keep the mobs grouped up. Purified. So I purified twice in red stagger. So if you look at this buff up here, one of my buffs here is this is your purified chi buff. I have 6 stacks. I purified twice in red stagger, which gave me 6 stacks, which then it's 20% per stack into your that buffs your celestial brew. So right now my celestial brew is buffed by 120%. I'm not blackout kicking enough. I think it's kind of hard to keep it all together when you're in a pack that does a lot of damage to you. So I'm at, purified again. So right now here, I'm at the full 10 stacks. So my celestial brew is buffed by 200%. I have it ready still. I haven't used it. I think I used it too late here. I would use it earlier. So now I used it. So now I have a celestial brew shield on me. Pretty big shield. See how tanky I am? I'm not even taking any damage right now. Step in some sanguine. I used the touch of death. I haven't used it yet. Now I used it. Getting thrown again. And that's basically so basically what I could have done better there is use blackout kick more to build up more dodge chances. I really didn't use it enough. There's a lot going on in that pull, and I think that I used Celestial Brew a little too late there. I overcapped on stacks. I really don't think it's a big deal if you overcap on stacks, but if you want to min-max, you probably want to try not to overcap on stacks if possible. But I guess you could play it the way that you would only use it if you would really need it in an area, and you would just hold on to the full stacks. I think either way works out fine, now that I think about it. Let's take a look at the first boss and see what I did right and do what I did wrong here. Let's just get into it. Blackout kick, doing that right. Keeping Russian Jade went up. Another blackout kick, which is good. Keeping Russian Jade went up. Keg smashing on cooldown. Yep. There's not a whole lot of damage going out. I haven't purified. I still have 2 charges of purifying. Brew. There you go. Purified there. Now here's where I kind of mess up, and I know. So if you look around me right here, where I'm tanking the boss, I have all these chi spheres here. Now, it'd be infinitely better if I was strafing and walking over these chi spheres while I'm taking damage, but instead you'll see me. I'll use Expel Harm, and I'll just soak them all up like I just did. I just soaked them all up and just overhealed myself completely, when I could have had more value out of those spheres by strafing over them. So that was one of the mistakes I did there. There's a lot of banter going on in this key, so I was getting a little distracted, but no excuses. I could have played a lot better. We did end up timing this key though, by the way. But my play could have been better. Again, I could be strafing over these. I use my Celestial Brew. I think I'm going to do it again. And the healer dies, so I'm looking at the healer. I'm not really pressing Blackout Kick on cooldown like I should. And I think I just Breath of Fired before I think I just Breath of Fired before I Keg Smash, which was not a good play. You always want to Keg Smash, then Breath of Fire. You want to get the debuff of Keg Smash, and then get the Afterburn and the damage reduction from Breath of Fire. And then I Expel Harmed again, which I shouldn't have done. So I could Touch of Death here. So I should be strafing. These are so easy to strafe over. I'm wondering why I'm not strafing over these. I guess I was just a bit distracted. And that's basically a boss fight. So I could have Blackout Kicked more, and definitely the Expel Harm thing definitely would have been a lot more valuable if I strafed over those orbs. I'm not going to go through the whole dungeon here, but that gives you an idea of an AoE pack and a single target boss. And that's basically my overview of the Brewmaster Monk and Shadowlands Prepatch. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. I'll answer all your questions. Or if you want to come hang out with me on Twitch, you can find me at twitch.tv/IronMonkTyson. I'll leave the link in the description below. Thank you guys.